Welcome, dear students. Our topic of discussion today is Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? William Shakespeare, as you know, is a monumental figure in the history of world literature, not only English literature but also world literature. Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets. Among those 154 sonnets, the first 126 are dedicated or addressed to a friend, a male friend. All we know about that friend is that his initials are W and H. That's it. These poems talk about friendship, celebrate friendship. They talk about the significance of such a friend in the poet's life. They talk about the fleeting nature of time. They talk about the shortness of life as compared to the longevity of art. And with these poems, Shakespeare eternizes a mortal friendship. A friendship that is mortal, that has to have some end, becomes eternized, and the topic of discussion, topic of enjoyment, topic of universal truth, century after century. So, Shakespeare, with these 126 sonnets, celebrates his friendship with a male friend. Sonnet 18 is one among these sonnets. What is a Shakespearean sonnet? A Shakespearean sonnet is a 14-line lyric poem having 3 quatrains and a couplet, typically with a specific rhyme scheme, that is AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, GG. Now, let us take a look at sonnet number 18. It begins with a rhetorical question. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The poet is not actually asking a question. It is presented in form of a question, but the poet is not actually asking a question. He is not looking for an answer. He knows the answer. He is going to give us the answer. He is just to emphasize his statement, his expression, to emphasize that he has just put forth the idea in the form of a question. Of course, he is going to say that even if I try to compare you with a summer's day, you are not comparable. The poet's point is you are better in some aspects than a summer's day. That the poet already knows, that the poet is going to express, but he begins with a question form. So he is not looking for an answer, and that's why it's called a rhetorical question. Looks like a question but actually is not a question. It does not demand an answer. The answer is within the question. The answer is implied. Okay, so shall I compare thee to a summer's day? After projecting the rhetorical question, the poet himself gives the answer. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Thou means you. You are more lovely and more temperate. That means the poet is addressing his friend and he is declaring that his friend is more lovely and more temperate compared to a summer's day. Now, is a summer's day lovely? We have to remember that we are talking about an English poet living in England 400 years ago. And today we are studying this poem being in this tropical area in the age of global warming. So, a summer's day is not a pleasant day for us. But in that time, in that country, of course, it was. So, a summer's day symbolizes or denotes a very pleasant weather to Shakespeare. And he is trying to compare his friend's beauty, his friend's character, his friend's charm with the pleasant weather of a summer's day. His point is that his friend is better than a summer's day. How? He explains, rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Meaning, if I look at summer, sometimes there are rough winds, and those rough winds wither the trees, torture the trees to some extent that the darling buds, that means flowers before even blooming, they are shaken off by the rough winds of summer sometimes. So even summer has some rough side, some rough aspect attached to it. The poet intends to mean that you, my dear friend, have no such rough aspect. And summer's lease has all too short a date. Summer comes and summer goes. It takes a brief period of time for summer to come and go. But you in my life, you are not for a brief period of time. You are my friend. You have been there for a long time. It is not too short a date. Now look at the usage of words. Lease, date. These are not generally expected to be used in the context of sentimental expressions. But Shakespeare, being the master of words, uses these words. Lease is a word that is used in case of contract, in case of commerce, in case of legal terms. Date means a date of expiration or something like that. But he, using the word date, actually means time period. So, his usage of words is quite peculiar, and we must note that. Why Shakespeare is Shakespeare? To understand that, we have to look at how he uses the words with different connotations, molding it and giving those words different shapes, different effectiveness. That is why Shakespeare is Shakespeare. Being a great poet, he can use a common word in an uncommon way, and an uncommon word in a very common way, an unexpected word in such a way as if we were expecting it, and vice versa. So, sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines. The eye of heaven, metaphorically, signifies the sun. The eye of heaven, that means the sun, shines too hot. Even in summer, the weather is not pleasant for all the time. Sometimes the sun shines too hot, and sometimes and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And sometimes his gold complexion, that means the sun's brightness, is dimmed by the overcast weather, etc. So it becomes gloomy for some time. Sometimes it shines so hot, sometimes it does the opposite. So it has some extreme forms. Even within the span of summer, the weather, the sun has some extreme forms to take. But you don't have such extreme ways in life. You are constantly pleasant. That is what the poet intends to mean. And every fair from fair sometime declines. Now fair, the word fair can have different meanings. Because it was used 400 years ago, fair does not necessarily mean just beautiful. Fair also in those times meant women specifically, and beauty, as well as women, and both the meanings were applicable. So even if we take fair as beautiful, only beautiful, or if we take fair as women and beauty, in both cases the meaning remains, the ultimate effectiveness of the line remains the same. He says that each kind of beauty, each kind of, be it human beauty, be it any kind of beauty, fairness, it has to decline sometime. It has to, because time will cause the beauty to decay. It is the law of nature. Whatever is beautiful cannot remain beautiful eternally. So every fair from fair sometime declines. Any kind of beauty in this world has to have a decline by accident or by taking the blows of time. Either we have to suffer from some accident and lose what we have, or in nature's due course, a cyclical decay will come and engulf us. That is the nature of life. That is a universal truth. So, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So, either by chance, either by accident, or by nature's changing course. Nature always keeps changing with time. Now the word untrimmed cannot be understood with our sense of the word untrimmed. To understand this word, we have to understand in what way it was used in that time of Shakespeare. Untrimmed means, or actually it meant in that time, to be devoid of ornaments. I mean, you were ornamented, now your ornaments are taken off, and that is untrimmed state. Okay, so every beauty, here beauty is taken as ornamentation. So every beauty in this world has to become untrimmed, has to be devoid of all its glory, all its glitters, all its charm, either by accident, by chance, or due to nature's changing course, due to the natural law of decay. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. Thy means your. So your eternal summer means you are pleasant, just as summer is pleasant, but you are better than summer because you do not have those extreme forms like summer has. You do not have a short period of time, a brief period of time to give me as a friend. You do not change with time. Your significance in my life, your charm has never changed, and so your eternal summer shall not fade. But is it because you are my friend, your eternal summer shall not fade? No, there is another reason. The poet is going to say now why his friend's eternal beauty, eternal charm is eternal, is going to be eternal, is never going to end, is never going to be subject to decay. And he explains thus, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Your beauty, fair means beauty, your eternal summer will never lose having the beauty that it already has. It will never be subject to decay. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. Death will not be proud enough to bring you under his dark shade, under his dark shadow. So death is personified here. Death is a villain that ends life, takes a person into darkness. Darkness means where he can never be found anymore. That darkness, that, he is lost forever. But Shakespeare says that his friend will never be lost in the darkness of death. How? Because when in eternal lines to time thou growest, because you will grow. You will grow with time, you will not die, you will grow with time because of these eternal lines. Because I am going to write poetry about you. This is art. Man dies because man is subject to the natural law of decay. So man dies. The body is gone. It is fated to be gone. But you will live in these lines that I am going to write, because art lives much, much longer. So long as men can breathe. Now this is the couplet, rhyming couplet, and here is the emphatic assertion that Shakespeare makes. This is the crux of the sonnet. This is the ultimate statement of the sonnet. This is the central idea of the sonnet. Most important assertion that the poet makes. And it is quite in Shakespeare's signature style. He emphatically asserts that so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. As long as humanity will be there, as long as they will be able to see, as long as they will be able to read, this poem will live. And as long as this poem, this piece of art is going to live, this will make you alive, keep you alive in the minds of humanity, because people will read about you and you will not be forgotten. You will not be sunk underneath the ocean of, the endless ocean of oblivion that is brought by death. Death can sink anyone under oblivion. After death, everyone is forgotten. But only those remain unforgotten who are remembered by other people for some reason. Now, if someone is eternized through the medium of art, because art lives much longer, that person's memory, that person's, all the information about that person, the idea of that person once being there on earth, that idea lives. That person cannot be sunk under oblivion, cannot be forgotten, cannot become nothing. So, this poem is about friendship. Not only that, in the quatrains, the 3 quatrains, first it begins with a rhetorical question. Then, throughout the 3 quatrains, he has compared his friend with the pleasant weather of summer, but he has shown how his friend is better in terms of pleasant nature than summer itself. Also, as he is comparing his friend with summer with details, the comparison goes on and on and on, point after point after point about summer. This is not just one simple metaphor. This is about sustained metaphor. Sustained metaphor means when you compare A with B, but then you compare it in detail by pointing out all the characteristics of B and comparing all those characteristics with the characteristics of A. You go to the very depth of that comparison. That is sustained metaphor. So this poem is filled with sustained metaphors, and also his use of words such as lease, date, these are very peculiar and must be noted how he uses those words in specific way, unexpected way, and also his uses of the word shade. It is an allusion to Bible. In Bible, death taking someone to shade, that was written, and he uses the word shade alluding to that biblical shade or shadow of death. Okay, so this poem is about friendship, and not only friendship, it is a comparison between summer and the friend. The significance of friendship is not explained, but it is mentioned. Also, one very central idea of this poem is that art can eternize whatever is mortal. A friendship, a friend can be mortal, but art can eternize it. And that was a very common idea during the Renaissance, that we are creating art because life has a very peculiar characteristic. Though life is great, life is very short. So we are creating art to eternize whatever we love, whatever we value. So that was a very prevalent idea during the Renaissance, and Shakespeare is talking about that here. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So that's about Sonnet 18. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I will try to answer as far as I can. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.